Welcome to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. It is Friday, January 5th, 2024. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train Kreitz.
All aboard.
Let's jump right into the news. Last night, we saw Nikola Jokic hit a last-second 40-foot three-pointer over Kevon Looney for Denver's 130-127 win at Golden State. The Warriors dropped to 16-18 with this loss. The Western Conference continues to be tight at the top of the standings. You have four teams within 3 games: Minnesota, OKC, Denver, and the red-hot LA Clippers. Aaron Gordon had a 30.9 rebound game in his second contest back from being attacked by, I think it was his dog.
Makes you wonder how he's treating his dog, doesn't it?
That's
just saying.
He said it's a good boy. I believe him.
He said it's a good. I believe him too. We also had some waiver wire darlings come off the bench for Golden State. Steve Kerr was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go with this lineup for the foreseeable future," and then he's like, "You know what? Just kidding. I was doing gamesmanship to scare off Mike Malone on the other side."
Total BS move. Drives me nuts.
As we all know, coaches lie all the time. Teams lie all the time. You're going to be just as right not believing them as you are believing them.
Free pods. Play pods.
Yeah, this was just a weird game overall. There's just the Warriors rotation is really frustrating because you go and add all these guys off the waiver wire and it's like, oh yeah, Kuminga's playing well. He's got, however many points and he ends up playing only 19 minutes. It's not like he was in foul trouble or anything.
Good game though. 16 points for.
Oh, he had a good game. It's like if he had played 28 minutes, imagine how good of a game he would have had. I don't know if there are any major fantasy takeaways from this game, Shannon, other than just, the Warriors rotation continues to be a bit frustrating, although allegedly Draymond Green is going to return to the facility in the upcoming days.
Yeah, so we're going to see another shakeup as soon as Draymond does return. I'm assuming, Chris Paul might go back to the bench. Maybe they go with a smaller lineup and put Looney back in the bench and keep Kuminga in there. It would seem to make sense to try to keep Kuminga in the starting lineup.
And play Wiggins less.
Yes,
Wiggins minus 14-point differential last night. Get him out of there.
But I don't think we're going to I think it's going to be a revolving door with that starting lineup, and there'll be switches until this team gets on the right track. 16-18, that's where Kerr's worry is. So, I don't think he's worried too much about what us fantasy basketball players think about his rotation.
They are 11th in the West. They are outside looking in at the play-in.
They are. Yeah, not only was Wiggins a minus 14 last night, he's a minus 14 on the season. It's been horrible for him.
It's been horrible. Well, hey, Alex, sort of good news, kind of bad news. The Bucks sneak by the lowly Spurs last night, 125-121. The Spurs average scoring 111 points per game, but put 121 on the defensively challenged Bucks. Giannis and Wemby had a huge showdown. Giannis, 44 points, 14 rebounds, 7 dimes, and 3 stocks. But Wemby, on his 20th birthday, 27 points, 9 boards, 1 assist, 5 blocks, also 5 turnovers. The Bucks are giving up almost 120 points per game, which ranks 24th in the association. Alex and Shannon, what can Milwaukee do to improve their defense?
Make a trade. Trade for Grayson Allen back. Subs don't need that guy. We could use him. No, it's just the Bucks. You lose Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen, who's a very good defensive backcourt, and you replace him with Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley, who are terrible in defensive backcourt. Not only that, Chris Middleton's not healthy on the wing. The wing defense is important, and he's been an overrated defender for like 5 years now. So it's there's only 2 good defenders in the starting lineup, and they both play on the back line.
Do they have draft picks they can deal?
I don't really think so.
I was gonna say I don't know how much they have in the treasure trove to make a trade. Right? No one's looking for Malik Beasley.
No, off the top of my head, I don't think they have anything.
No,
Yeah.
not much to do. Essentially, they're just like every other contender. They're going to be on the market for a 3-and-D perimeter player come the trade deadline. Good luck landing that with the assets they have. Maybe in the buyout market they'll find someone, but they're just going to have to outscore other teams. And really, other than Indiana, they've been doing that against most teams in the NBA. So I don't think the Bucks have much to worry about, honestly.
Do you think they're praying they can get PJ Tucker in the buyout?
Oh my
No.
God, get him back. I don't know. The problem is they need guard
Defender.
defense.
Right,
They need
that's true.
backcourt defense. Yeah, they
That's
don't need
true.
another PJ
That's
Tucker
true.
type.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Alex, you're the one that's stuck doing the lineups and the injuries, and you deal with this the most at RotoWire. Can you explain the whole Chris Middleton back-to-backs thing and why he sort of did not sit last night, and the whole NBA rules where they're trying to stop the sitting?
Well, the team knew that Middleton wasn't going to play the second half. No one else knew. We didn't know. I don't know if the sports
traditionally they were traditionally not playing Middleton in back-to-backs.
Yes.
And somebody must have told Milwaukee from the head office, "Hey, we think he's ready to play," or what was going on there?
Well, he had been playing 30 minutes. I mean, before that he had played 30 minutes in what is this? 6 straight games. So the Bucks were ramping him up. But yeah, this was apparently a scheduled second half rest day, which only they knew internally and did not report to anybody. So that's really frustrating.
I will say Adrian Griffin did announce before the game that Chris Middleton, this may be an hour before the game, that Chris Middleton was going to have his minutes monitored during Thursday night's contest. What that means, obviously, you have to still decipher. But it did immediately. I went and said, okay, well, I'm taking them out of my DFS lineups. So that is something to watch. Keep an eye out for those type of updates. And if it's with a guy like Chris Middleton, I think you have to proceed with caution if you're playing in a daily league or a DFS format.
So it feels like they're doing something sneaky to not get fined by the head office, and it's weird. But that's good advice, gentlemen. Alex, tell us about news in Chicago.
Yeah, we have Zach LaVine is questionable to return tonight for the Bulls. We thought maybe we had seen the last of LaVine in a Bulls uniform, but they're going to bring him back seemingly soon. And I don't know if it's just to prove that he's healthy so they can move him. But, from a fantasy standpoint, you might have a few not rough games, but Kobe White's usage might go down a bit here, but I would still hold on, assuming LaVine's getting traded.
You know why they're bringing him back? Because nobody wants him. Nobody's
that might be true.
Oh yeah, I'd love to pay him $46 million for each of the next 3 seasons to play terrible defense and pout when he doesn't get to shoot 1,000 times a game. Yeah, please give me that honor.
Yeah, he's a hard player to trade for because we know he can't be your number one option. He's
making number one money.
If he's your number 2 option, your number 1 probably has to be like borderline MVP. So if you're trading for him, you have to be a team that's decent right now, but that needs a third option. And it's like, what is that? 2 teams? I don't even know. Like the Kings. It's just, I don't know. He's a really hard guy to trade. We also have Kevin Durant still questionable for tonight. He's missed 2 games. I would be surprised if he came back tonight. No reason to rush him back or anything. Phoenix is 18-16. They're 9th in the West. They've been completely unable to get healthy. I did look up what their numbers are with Bradley Beal, Durant, and Booker on the floor together. It's like 120, 150 possessions or something like that. They're plus 25 per 100. They're destroying teams when they're all on the court together, but they've played the equivalent of 1.5 full games.
Yeah.
So
is this lineup ever healthy though? I don't know if Beal's ever going to play a 50-game season. Durant's 87 years old or something. Shannon, what's your optimism or pessimism for the Suns?
I mean, I do think we're nearing good news for them, right? Durant should be returning. He's questionable for tonight. I think that they're best served keep him out until he's truly a 100%. But on the Beal side, it's actually been pretty encouraging since this 5 game. He sat for 5 games. He's been back for 4 now. And upon his return, they had mentioned they're going to kind of watch his minutes closely and ramp them up accordingly, but not just let him go out there and immediately play a full load of minutes. But he actually is already there. I mean, he played 30, 35, 34, 41 minutes in the most recent game on Wednesday. Well, maybe they did the first game, but if they're confident or comfortable enough playing him for 41 minutes on Wednesday, that's a good indicator that he's healthy right now.
He's been north of 30 minutes since he came back. He played a whopping 41 on the third. So his inevitable breakdown will come.
Yeah. Depending on what book you look at for futures championship odds, the Suns are still 4th in title odds right now, behind the Celtics, Nuggets, and Bucks, and above the 76ers, Clippers, Lakers, Wolves, Thunder, Mavericks, Heat is how that goes. Nick and I have been talking about the Thunder's title odds. Before Christmas, they were like 45-1, and now they're down to 23-1. So people are definitely starting to have some more belief in the Thunder.
To beat the T-Wolves and the Celtics, and that's going to get you some attention.
It will. Yeah. Okay, before we get to fan feedback, let's talk about Underdog Fantasy, the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus. Choo-choo, Ken.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to get our That's code RWNBA and or just choo-choo. Anyway, trying to line up our questions here.
Got one filibustered. That's my fault.
Yeah, got one from presumably a Nick fan. Do you guys think McBride is worth a grab and hold, or is he just a streamer? Miles McBride, 23-year-old guard, did sign a 3-year extension with the Knicks.
I mean, I kind of liked what I saw from McBride last year. He's like a steals guy mostly, steals and threes. But the fact that he played 18 minutes in that game where Anunoby hadn't played yet and Barrett and Quickly were gone. Then he played 7 minutes and 10 minutes. I can't hold him. It's just, I like him. If you're in a really deep dynasty league and you have like a G League spot or a developmental spot, yeah, throw him in there, whatever. But I couldn't do it in a redraft league.
Yeah, same. It's got to be an extremely deep league because at best, what is he, the 5th guard on this team right now? It's certainly encouraging that they view him as a possible long-term asset, and that's why the Knicks signed him to the extension. But until I see McBride actually go out there and play 20-plus minutes or produce at a level that's appropriate to warrant a pickup in whatever size fantasy league you're in, then I think he's just keep him on the waiver wire and watch and pick him up when the time's right.
All right. Next question's about pickups. It may be too long. Yeah, it fits there nicely. Guy wants to know Richards, Olynyk, Batazzi, Nance Jr., all on his waiver wire. You got any preferences for those 4? I know we were talking pre-show about Mark Williams returning for the Hornets.
Yeah, I mean, I would say all those guys are fair ads. I'm looking at your drop candidates. Out of those guys, I would probably go with Jackson Davis or Eason as a drop. Although I love Eason so much, it'd be hard for me to drop him. I don't know, Shannon. Do you have a preference on either the pickups or the drops?
Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, Drummond will be a drop as soon as Vooch returns. It
could be tonight, by the way.
It could be tonight.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna go with Olynyk as my favorite of those 4. Richards has had a couple of good games, but he hasn't been consistent enough. And also, I know Williams is already ruled out for Friday, and he's had that doubtful take for so long. But it does seem
out already.
I believe so. Unless,
God.
Yep, out for Friday.
Wow.
So that's actually
done for the year. It's a joke.
Charlotte, for what it's worth, Charlotte and Utah both have 4 games next week. We'll get a little more into Larry Nance and the pickups.
Yeah, we will.
But
I think Olynyk. I'm going with the clinic, and I would drop. Basically, I would wait until I would hold on to Drummond for as long as possible, and then as soon as we know Vooch is returning, drop Drummond for Olynyk.
For what it's worth, Wendell Carter's still having issues in Orlando. Alex, didn't you and I trade a few slacks about Batazzi going back up the depth chart?
Yeah, we need to push Batazzi back up because I don't know if Wendell Carter's gonna start again this season. He just hasn't been playing that well, and he's been coming off the bench the past 3 games, and they played so well without him there. I just, I mean,
that's the thing. They did play so well with him as a starter. Why would you upset that mojo for such a mediocre player in Carter?
And look, I mean, moving him up the RotoWire depth chart is one thing, but the more relevant question that we get about Carter is should I pick him up? And I don't think so because his absolute ceiling is top 80. But that's if he plays 33. That's if he plays 30. No, he doesn't. And that's if he plays 33 minutes a game and he stays healthy, which he has never done. So you can't. To me, he's not even worth picking up unless you're in maybe a 14-team league.
Well, and the way they keep waffling him, he's back, he's not back, makes me think that knee is messy.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully I won't butcher any more of the ad reads dealing with the fan feedbacks. But I love the fans, Alex. I'm here for the fans and the sponsors. That's a tough choice to make. But let's get back to the notes. I believe it is now time for the money segment of the pod, the waiver wire. Take it away, Alex.
The waiver wire. If you are new joining us here or just like hearing me say this every week, how we do this is we have 2 regular picks and 1 long shot. Regular picks must be rostered in 50% or fewer fantasy leagues, usually Yahoo. And the 1 long shot rostered in about 25% or fewer of Yahoo leagues. Warning, Brooklyn and Cleveland only have 1 game next week. Philly with 2 games. So if you have some guys in your roster that you've been streaming from those teams, or you're thinking about picking someone up, be careful if it's from either of those squads. I'm going to kick things off. Donte DiVincenzo of the New York Knicks. He was our waiver wire cover guy on our YouTube video 2 weeks ago, but the situation has changed after RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley were traded to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for OG Anunoby, which opened up some time. He had a career high, DiVincenzo did, 38 points after the Barrett Quickley trade, but before OG got there. Followed that up with 2 performances where he totaled 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block in 51 minutes. What it looks like from what we've seen the past couple games with this Tibbs rotation is that DiVincenzo probably going to see about 6 more minutes than he was before, but that also comes with a bit higher usage. Playing a little bit more backup guard. He's going to handle some more than he was before because Quickley's not there. This might be more of a 14-team ad. I understand in 12-teamers, it's kind of borderline, but he actually ranks 49th in per minute 8 cap production this year. He's playing really well. Fantasy point per minute. So if you're in a points league and you're in a 12-team points league, it's a fine ad. New York only has 3 games next week, so he doesn't make for a great streamer, but he's more of a long-term, I would say longer-term 14-team league option. Ken, take us to our cover guy.
Sounds good, Alex. I know. Maybe, we got to get the cover guys in early. Maybe I showed a little too much enthusiasm here. Maybe he should be my dull pick or my long shot of the week, but perennial waiver wire ad, Larry Nance of your New Orleans Pelicans. He's rostered in 22% of Yahoo leagues. He's back after a rib injury. He does qualify as a forward and center on both Yahoo and ESPN. As Alex loves to point out, Nance plays better with Zion than Jonas Valanciunas, and we're seeing this as Nance eats into JV's playing time. Pelicans only have 3 games next week, so maybe not ideal to stream this week versus next week. But if you need center help, I've got one league where I'm desperately looking for a backup center. Larry Nance is back and always a solid option.
Good suggestion, Ken. My first waiver wire pickup of the week is a guy we've talked about already this season, Aaron Nesmith, swingman for the Indiana Pacers, 32% rostered on Yahoo. Like I said, we've mentioned him before, but he continues to play better. His roles changed some. So I think he warrants consideration. Again, he has started the last 5 games for the Pacers. He's been a top 50 player over the past week with averages of 12.5 points, 3.3 3-pointers, 2 steals, and 1 block in 28 minutes per game. Indiana has 4 games next week. Nesmith is never going to, it's highly unlikely he's going to go out there and average 18, 20 points per game, but he does enough of the little stuff, has some steals, some threes mixed in where it's going to provide solid overall value. The Shane Battier special, I always like to call that. And I think we're going to see that from him for the remainder of the season, or as long as he stays in the Pacers starting lineup. Even before he's promoted to the starter, he was finishing a lot of games for the Pacers. So it's obvious that Rick Carlisle likes Nesmith and will be an important part of the rotation moving forward.
He is hands down their highest energy guy. His minutes are always going to be there, whether it's bench or starter, because he's their biggest hustler on defense and the boards, which is weird. He was kind of drafted to be that 3-and-D sharpshooter, but really he's turned into a high energy guy.
It's been impressive. It's weird that he is a starting power forward in the NBA. Preseason, we were talking about Toppin, we were talking about Walker, and expecting one of those guys to break out. But no, it's Nesmith for the Pacers.
Well, and really, Jalen Smith's playing power forward, and they finally moved Smith to small forward.
You're correct now. Yes, that is the case.
Yeah.
But Nesmith does log a lot of minutes at the 4.
Alex, tell us about another perennial waiver wire person out in Utah.
Well, it's former Celtic, former Piston, Kelly Olynyk,
Former Rocket.
Former Rocket, former. I think that's it. Miami.
Oh yeah. They gave him the big contract after Boston.
Former Piston.
Former Piston.
I said that.
Yeah. He and Larry Nance could be the same person, actually.
Yeah.
Canadian Larry Nance, Kelly Olynyk.
If you put them together, they make one really good starter. Utah plays 4 times next week, so that's kind of what's driving a lot of this. Olynyk's a great streaming option. We could say this about Nance as well. Past 14 games for Olynyk. It's a pretty extended stretch here. 9 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal for 27 fantasy points in 23 minutes. The minutes fluctuate a lot, but you got a 4-game week, so you're kind of insulated from some variance there. Still one of the best per minute fantasy players in the NBA. They can't quit him, just like we can't quit him. So go ahead and stream him in on your 12-teamers.
You know what this really indicates is just how bad John Collins has been playing for the Jazz. They really wanted to replace Olynyk with John Collins, and they were like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, Ken, who's your second waiver wire pickup?
Another perennial waiver wire person. Both Shannon and I had him listed. Shannon politely deferred to me. Kelly Oubre of your Philadelphia 76ers, only 45% rostered on Yahoo. This is a longer-term play because Philly has only 2 games. So do not do this for streaming for next week. But Oubre is back as a starter, has started the last 7 games after that car accident that led to a rib injury. Last 5 games, 14 points, 4 rebounds, over 2.5 threes, 2.2 stocks while shooting a nice 47%. It made sense that he was slow coming back from that rib injury, but I think he's finally back. Everybody picked him up 10 games into the season before that car accident, and he's working his way back to maybe passing Tobias Harris as the number 3 scoring option on this Sixers team. Anyway, that's a long-term move, though. Kelly Oubre, don't play him next week.
I love Oubre as a pickup, Ken. As you mentioned, we both were going to highlight him this week. I do wonder if he's going to stick in the starting lineup once the Sixers are healthy, because over these 7 games, Embiid missed some time, Melton missed some time,
hurt,
Batum missed time. So I'm curious if they're going to keep him, move him to a 6-man role long term, which wouldn't necessarily hurt his overall production, or keep him in the starting lineup. So that is one aspect to monitor.
If they move him to 6-man, he's going to be the Vinny Johnson points off the bench guys. I'm not sure it affects his stats that much because they're not particularly deep.
Kelly,
and I should notice that I also had Nesmith, so I supported the Aaron Nesmith pick as well that you had there, Shannon.
Kelly, the air fryer Oubre. All right. My second pickup is a guy who is just over the 50% mark, but I think his role is about to change a little bit. Jalen Suggs, guard for the Orlando Magic, 54% rostered on Yahoo. Orlando is dealing with some injuries. Franz Wagner just left a game because of an ankle injury on Wednesday night. He's been ruled out for Friday already. It's kind of to be determined how long he will sit. It's an ankle sprain. Depending on the severity of that ankle sprain, it could be a week. It could be, a handful of weeks. We just don't know yet how long he's going to sit. And if Wagner sits, I think we're going to see Wagner.
No, I said ooh, like I supported. Yes. Ooh,
oh,
like,
okay. Ooh,
yeah.
Ooh. I thought we were going back to Oubre.
No.
Okay. If Franz sits, I like Suggs to see an increase in his usage. We saw that in the game that Franz had to leave early. A big all-around game from Suggs on January 3rd. He had 41 fantasy points, played 39 minutes, which I believe is a career high. 24 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 6 3-pointers, 6 for 12 from downtown. It's been rare where Suggs would get 18 field goal attempts, but that's how many he saw on Wednesday. And if Franz is out, Franz has been the team's number 2 option behind Banchero. So if they need more scoring, you've already got Fultz is out for Friday, for instance. So you have Wagner out on Friday, Fultz out on Friday, Gary Harris out on Friday. This team's going to need more scoring.
Out.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, how could I forget? Joe Ingles out on Friday. This team is going to need more scoring, and I expect Suggs to really step up. So if you're looking for a short-term streaming option, if you're in a shallow league, I think Suggs is a guy to pick up. But he should be rostered more than 50%, 54% of leagues by now.
When they were running a lot of the offense through Wagner, almost in a Grant Hill point forward capacity with Fultz out, which has been what now, 3-4 weeks? I don't know. It seems like it's been forever. So they'll need Suggs. Suggs is going to hold the ball a ton. The ball's going to go through his hands a
ton. My long shot pick, Ken's Shannon's Alec Burks, another waiver wire staple. Shannon's shaking his head. You don't love Alec Burks? Come on.
I'm not going to claim that one.
He's 9% rostered in Yahoo. Questionable for tonight, so that's just a quick heads up. If you're trying to stream him in tonight, beware of that. But the past 5 games for Burks, he's averaging 18.2 points, 3.4 threes, 2.6 boards, 1.0 assists in 26 minutes. He's had, let's say, varying fantasy relevance throughout this season, but when he's hot, when Monty Williams is playing him, you got to add him in 16-team leagues for sure. Shallower, kind of borderline, but it should be more than 9% while he's hot.
Yeah, almost. Hey, I'll hit that game tire that they lost in overtime. Who was that against? I forget.
Utah. It was against Utah. He had a big game against Utah, and he played really well. He has back-to-back really good games. I'm not a big fan of the Pistons bench unit, but it's hard to argue with Burks as a streaming option in deep leagues. That is definitely the case.
Yeah.
Especially if you need 3-pointers.
Yeah, that's true. 3-pointers. I have a similar super deep league long shot, but at least he's a starter. Toumani Camara of your Portland Trailblazers, only rostered in 3% of leagues, but Portland has 4 games tomorrow. Next week, 4 games next week. The second-round rookie has started for the Trailblazers since mid-November. And last 10 games, he's had boring but steady production of 8 points, over 5 rebounds, 1.6 stocks, 1 3-pointer, while shooting a nice 49% from the field. Again, this is our long shot for deep leagues, 16-team leagues. The minutes are there. You need minutes to be productive, and the Trailblazers have 4 games. If you're in a deep league, need to stream somebody because you got Brooklyn or Cleveland on your roster, Toumani Camara can get you by the next week.
It's funny because his best NBA comp might be on his team, Matisse Thybulle.
I was just Thibault. Yeah, exactly.
He's kind of that
Fighting
guy.
him
So
for minutes.
Probably not as high of a ceiling on the defensive end as Thibault, but better shooter, a better shooter.
A lot cheaper for the Trailblazers, Camara. But
there you go.
Who's your long shot, Shannon?
Yeah, our final suggestion for the week: Simone Fontecchio, starting small forward for the Utah Jazz. He impressed me. I watched him play against the Pistons. I've seen him play a handful of times this year, but he was brilliant against Detroit on Wednesday night. He's looked really good since returning to the starting lineup 3 games ago. Over that 3 games, he is averaging 17 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 2 steals, and 2.3 3-pointers, 41% from downtown, 55 from the floor. If he sticks in the starting lineup, I think he's worth a look in most 12-team leagues, definitely 14-team leagues. I'm surprised that the Jazz went back to him, but I also was never a big believer of Markkanen being a small forward. I think he's a better fit at the 4. So if Fontecchio is available and you're in a 12, 14-team league, he's worth a look, especially if you need 3-pointers, and probably a good hold for as long as he stays in the starting lineup.
Yet another human embodiment of the failure that is John Collins in Utah. But he's had some huge games. They were dinged up a little bit, but
they're healthy now. I mean, they're healthy now, and he's playing over 30 minutes per game over that 3-game stretch.
Maybe part of their good tanking strategy. We'll see. But they keep playing them. All right, gentlemen, it is time for your Friday night DFS advice on a very busy slate, and I'll try to answer a few questions live while you guys give your awesome DFS advice.
There are 14 games today, which makes my job and anybody else's job who works at this company and works on NBA content a living nightmare. But if you play DFS in a throne like Shannon does, this is a really fun night. Highest over under of the night, Atlanta at Indiana, 262 over under. We saw this go for what was it, over 300 last time these two teams played against each other. Absolutely ridiculous. As always, in terms of injuries, too many guys out to just sit here and list. Nobody wants to listen to that. So check the RotoWire daily lineups page, check the RotoWire injuries page. Read the analysis, etc. Shannon, on this slate, where is the first place that you are turning?
Well, it's going to be that Atlanta-Indiana game.
Okay.
Basically, any players you can get in your lineup from that contest probably makes sense. The Pacers have a lot of guys who have high ceilings coming off their bench, like Buddy Hield, Mathurin. There, Isaiah Jackson, even, our optimizer likes Isaiah Jackson tonight, even though he's going to probably play less than 20 minutes because of that high over under. It's an absolutely monster game from a DFS standpoint. My favorite play from that game is Jalen Johnson, 6,900 on DraftKings. We've talked about Johnson a lot preseason, during the season. He has been fantastic since returning from injury. Over the past 3 games, he has 42, 48, and 49 fantasy points. It's tough for me to avoid him, especially in a cushy matchup against the Pacers, who are horrible against opposing forwards.
I looked this up the other day. I don't remember the exact stats on it, but obviously the Pacers are one of the worst transition teams in the NBA. And Jalen Johnson scores something like 35% of his points in transition. So it should be a massive opportunity for him to play. So I definitely like that call. Other guys you can get in that game are good. The Pacers they don't have any backcourt defenders either. Hard for me to really say, like, don't play Trae Young, don't play DeJounte Murray. It's just like it's hard to ignore at some point. Aside from those guys, I think Nick Richards is going to continue to be a good value. It's a little up and down, but he's he had like one bad game against Phoenix going up against Nurkic. That happens. Nurkic is actually pretty good at stopping opposing centers from getting rebounds. But he's had a decent floor of about 26 to 30 fantasy points going up against Chicago, who may or may not be without Nikola Vucevic. Any other spots for you, Shannon?
Yeah, Richard's certainly a good solid play. He remains under $6,000, so in that range, he's usually a good option. And that matchup against Chicago is nice. One center that I do like more than Richards, who is in that same price range, is our boy Isaiah Hartenstein, 6,000 for the New York Knicks. He's been playing better since the trade. Past 2 games, 39 minutes, 37 minutes. 34 and 47 fantasy points in those 2 outings. I think 2 weeks, or actually this wasn't on podcast, but we talked about it. I thought maybe Precious Atua would eat in to Hartenstein's minutes. That hasn't happened yet. Hartenstein's only playing more minutes. And for as long as that happens, I'm going to roll with Hartenstein as long as he's a discount on DraftKings like he is tonight. Couple other discount guys that I like. Cody Martin for the Charlotte Bobcats.
Oh,
why do I always say Bobcats? Hornets.
No, they're the
Charlotte
Bobcats.
They'll always be the Bobcats in my heart. But Cody Martin played 33 minutes against Sacramento on Tuesday night. Only 17 fantasy points, but I love the fact that he's playing 33 minutes. This Charlotte team's still shorthanded. Gordon Hayward's out. And I think Cody Martin is actually the guy who is the better fit. You got Bruce McGowan and some other options who they've been streaming in and out of their starting lineup. But I wouldn't be surprised if Martin even gets a starting nod in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, I wrote him up in an article I did about, risers and fallers over the holiday, week and a half. And he was in there because it's like, well, he's been a decent guy for like 14 team fantasy leagues for a while. So I like that call. We also have this Washington-Cleveland game with a 240 over-under. I think Kuzma's a solid option in this game. He's going to be guarded by Dean Wade, most likely, which should lead to some buckets. Ken, Jazz versus Celtics. What have you seen lately?
Revenge game for the clinic.
Oh, yeah, true.
I have been frantically answering questions in the message
I know,
board.
I see that. Yeah.
I think the fear was just who would Boston bench. Who are they going to rest? Even if they say everyone's healthy, they have had a healthy injury report the last few games. Al Horford's going to take a snooze. I would just be worried that blowout, and we see a lot of O'Shea Brissett, Lamar Stevens, and Luke Cornett. So my fear would just be at home too. Now, maybe Boston takes this game for granted, but the fear of a blowout and low minutes for the starters would worry me.
Yeah, I mean, this 14-point favorites, Boston are against Utah. So blowout potential is there.
Colin Sexton, though, has been playing really well. I guess I'd lean a little, though. Boy, the Celtic guard defense is so awesome. Awesome. Maybe not.
We have the Pistons on the slate, Shannon, going up against the Warriors, who played a really hard-fought game yesterday, second night of a back-to-back for them. What have you seen out of Detroit lately, aside from Alec Burks turning things up?
So what we have on DraftKings, which is this is a unique thing that they've been doing lately. They've divvied up their main slate to not include the final 2 to 3 games especially when it's a big slate like this. So the late games are actually a separate slate and not a part of the main slate on DraftKings for tonight. But
I don't mind that.
No, it's a unique twist. I kind of like it. I think it certainly helps players who aren't the Sharks. If you're not, if you max entry lineup folks probably would prefer the full all games be on the slate. But I think this is a benefit for people who like to just kind of play more casually. It's tough. I think the Golden State side we'll have to see, because I wouldn't be surprised if they rest a couple players. For Detroit, I mean, Cade Cunningham's been carrying this team, is going to have to continue to do so. He had a big 58-point fantasy outing against Utah. He had one dud against the Rockets, where he only had 20 fantasy points, but everything else over the past couple weeks, 50, 60 points. At 8,600, Cade's still a quality option there. I'm not confident enough in Burks to go that route. 4,800. He essentially needs to be hot from three when he comes off the bench and have a player like Jaden Ivey not be playing well to be guaranteed to play 25 minutes or more. So he's a bit riskier. And then same thing with like Isaiah Livers could maybe be an option for that late slate if you're looking for a cheap option. 4,100. He started the game against Utah and played 36 minutes. Monty Williams up to his old tricks there. It's tough. I do like more players on the Golden State side, but I would want to see who they're actually starting. So, does Looney play and start again, or do they go back to Jackson Davis? Is Kuminga still in the starting lineup, or maybe they rest Wiggins, maybe they rest Thompson? It's all going to change. Pods would be an option, of course, as well if they're resting some of their veterans. But going back to the main slate on DraftKings tonight, there are, we talked about Donte DiVincenzo earlier. He's a solid option, 5,300 on DraftKings. Alex mentioned that big night that he had, 61 fantasy points when he scored 38 points. He's got that kind of upside, which is rare for someone priced at 5,300. And then one of my favorite picks for this slate is Karl Anthony Towns. I hate the matchup. He's going against the Rockets, but he is listed at 7,200.
Really low
on DraftKings. It feels like a mistake. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, he was 9,000. He was 7,800 in the most recent game, usually in the 8,000 to mid $8,000 range. He's had, I wouldn't even say he's had too many sneakers. He had a couple games in late December where he didn't top 30 fantasy points, but 41 fantasy points, 32. Yeah, exactly. He wasn't at full strength. So 41 and 32 fantasy points past 2 games. Still taking a ton of shots, 18 field goal attempts, 19 field goal attempts. 7,200 for a player who's averaging essentially 40 fantasy points per game is unheard of. And even though I don't like the matchup, I will be hard pressed to not have him in my final lineup.
I think that can probably wrap things up for the DFS segment, which means that it is time for Ken's Old Man Rant.
Arrgh. On Wednesday, the Indiana Pacers debuted new jersey patches with QR codes on the ad shoulder. What? Can't people just watch the damn game? Does this mean I can't get a real menu at their stadium? Hand me a printed menu, damn it. I'm against anything that has people on their phones more. Cell phones are evil. No one interacts human to human anymore. I have no idea how young people get laid. Arrgh.
Can I get a potential
There's an app for that, Ken.
Yeah, that's true. Can I get a potential old man rant? I need your take on this, Ken. The Orlando Magic retiring Shaquille O'Neal's number.
I mean, how many?
I wanted
to pull up his career stats. I mean, he did get them to a final.
He got them to a final.
No,
but they didn't win it, and then he bailed for LA.
He did bail on him. I mean,
he played 5 years there.
It's a PR stunt, right? The guy's been on TV now for 20 years after his retirement. Orlando needs some good news for the last 20 years. I say, sure, why not?
At worst, he's the third most important player to ever put on a Magic jersey. I would argue he's the most important. The only other options are Dwight Howard and Tracy McGrady. That's it. You don't have anyone else that falls into it. I think Shaq's what put them on the map, and I think he deserves it.
I think he deserves it.
Okay. I'm looking at the Magic all-time top 12 players in terms of win shares right now. Dwight Howard, number 1. Nick Anderson, number 2. Vooch, number 3. Shaq, number 4, followed by T-Mac.
And Shaq's 4 with only playing 5 seasons. That's insane.
Have they retired Dwight Howard's number over there? I'd rather have Shaq than Dwight Howard.
I don't think he's technically retired.
Yeah, he's technically active, right? I mean, he's destroying
The
Some
Taiwan League?
in a different country.
We're now varying into topics that cannot be discussed on the pod.
Thank you, everybody.
I would check.
Okay. I didn't know. I wanted to maybe spark a second old man rant. Rare. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Ken, take us out of here.
Let's go back to San Antonio to hear Bucks coach Adrian Griffin gush about Wemby and Giannis after last night's matchup. Griffin said, quote, "That was a fun game. That was a fun game to coach, a fun game to watch. Two of the most unique, talented big men. I use that big man term loosely because they are very versatile players. Man, that was fun. I thought Wemby was great. I thought Giannis was phenomenal. I'm not sure Griffin's so happy if they blow that game, but cute to hear a coach act like a fan was nice. Anyway, attention passengers. This 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line."